Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Becoming Relentless. I am your host, elenoa.mccabe. I'm an IFBB Bikini Pro and an online health and fitness coach. And today is the very first day of 2025. Slay. So what we're going to do is we're just going to talk stream of consciousness. I tried to prepare something, but I'll be so real with y'all. My brain just could not focus in on a topic. And I also asked for some questions, but unfortunately it is a Sunday morning. So I only got a few in, and I don't think it's you guys. I don't think it's the listeners that asked, but the questions that were asked, I just don't want to answer. So we're just going to roll with it. But one of the questions that I did get was, it's kind of funny because it's something that I actually myself am struggling with. But somebody asked, gaining weight on the holidays after a prep and feeling bad about it, what do I do? And most of y'all know I competed in November. And since then, I am about, I want to say I'm 7 weeks post-show, and I am 10 pounds up from stage weight, which realistically, in the grand scheme of things, like 10 pounds is not that crazy of an amount to be up over your stage weight, especially within like bodybuilding and bikini, getting super lean. But that doesn't mean that it's still not a mental struggle. And I go through this every time, and I've been very open with my struggles in reverse dieting, but at the end of a prep, your relationship with food is not normal. It's usually skewed. And I think the more that you compete, the more used to it you get. Like, it just becomes more normal that okay, my food focus is probably going to be high, or my cravings are going to be crazy. And you just kind of know what to expect. But even when you know what to expect, it's still hard. So this past season, I only did one show, did my pro debut, and I placed. So 14th, but still we're excited about that. But after that, my feedback was to grow, and also getting my blood work back. There's just things that I am going to prioritize over bodybuilding for the next year. And knowing that, I did not put as much discipline or effort into nailing down my reverse as usual. So normally, I'm one of those people that for the 6 weeks post show, I'm very strict. I'm very much on my diet. I don't deviate as much. I'll allow myself things here and there. But this year I did not do that. I was kind of the opposite. I just allowed myself to eat whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. And I did the thing that I always say not to do. And I hoarded a bunch of food, the American Dream nut butters that everybody's obsessed with. I ordered 8 jars for no reason, because I actually really don't like them. But it was one of those things where the prep, I think there's a multitude of factors, but the prep was really hard for no reason, where I was on 600 calories a day, 2 hours of cardio a day. And that in itself is going to set you up for a really difficult reverse, because you're not eating very much and you're doing all this activity and your hunger signaling is crazy. You literally can't stop thinking about food. I would wake up and think about food. I would have my first meal, still be hungry, go throughout my day. And all I could think about all day, every day leading into the show was food. And I was open about that with my close friends and my support system. But post show, it became a little bit more difficult. And I was still as open as I could be with people. But all of this is to say, I did not nail down my reverse the way that I normally do. And it's okay. I'm actually kind of okay with it. But I appreciate whoever asked this question. And I just want you to know you're not alone in that, because post-show is going to be really difficult. And most people, 99% of people, gain weight through the holidays. That's simply the way the holidays are kind of designed. Everything is around food. Families gather around food. Your coworkers gather around food. So the holidays are kind of a time where most people are going to gain weight anyways. And I'm not saying that should be an excuse. I'm not saying that people should just be oh yeah, it's just what happens, and just accept that. Because there's definitely ways around that. And if you're curious about ways around holiday weight gain, I actually did an episode on that 2 weeks ago. So go back and listen to that one. What I'm getting at is the struggle that you're experiencing with your body, feeling guilty, or feeling somehow you failed, or feeling out of control around food. Any of those things, it's okay to feel those things. And I think that the first step in overcoming where you're at is giving yourself grace with it. And the reason why this like also really resonated is because I was literally struggling with it yesterday. I have been going to Pilates, I was going to Pilates pretty regularly, like during prep, because I like the hot mat Pilates because I like feeling like I'm working out in a sauna. I like working up that sweat. It just feels good. But ever since I started working my office job, I have not had the flexibility in my schedule to go as often. So yesterday I was able to actually like go to my first hot mat Pilates class in a while. And like the first thing I noticed was like the outfit that I wore. I used to wear it during prep and it was like tighter now. So like already going to the class, I was kind of uncomfortable. And then if you've taken these like group fitness classes, like Pilates, yoga, whatever, there's mirrors on every wall. So you can't not see yourself. And because I was going like during prep or like right after the show, I got used to seeing myself in that environment, in those mirrors, like in my really lean body. And that used to be like a source of pride because I'd be like, oh, wow, like I look really good. I'm really lean. I'm really shredded. Like I look like I fit in with these like long limbed Pilates girlies. And then yesterday, like going, I noticed like, oh, it's obvious that I've put 10 pounds on. Like I could see it and my body looked different. And then I also was kind of like, oh, like the girls that like the regulars at this studio that I used to see when I was regularly going, like, I wonder if they notice, like, I wonder if they think that I'm getting fat. And just like all of these thoughts, like during the whole class, I was just like pretty uncomfortable. Like I was just like, ugh. But after the class, like, so I spent the whole class just being like, okay, just get out of my head. Like just move my body. Like you like doing this because it feels good, because it's different. It's not weightlifting. It's a different challenge. And it's like 100 degrees in there. It's 40% humidity. Like you were just sweating buckets. And so like that inherently does feel good. Like I really like to sweat, but the whole class, I was just kind of thinking in the back of my head, like, I wonder if anybody notices or like what they think, or like I wouldn't want to look at myself in the mirror because I knew that like I wasn't going to like what I saw. And then literally like right after the class, I went to the bathroom and I looked in the mirror in there and I was like, oh, I look fine. Like I look great. And I think that also kind of goes to show that like the environment that you're in, the like perception of yourself that you have, it is very fluid. Like your perspective on your body is fluid and it can be influenced by so many things. And another good example of that is like if somebody gives you a compliment, like that can change your whole day. And I'm not saying that we need to like rely on external compliments, but it's like you could be having like a really bad body image day and then somebody could tell you like, hey, you look great, or like I really like X, Y, and Z about you, and it'll just change everything, right? So I think you need to be that for yourself. And we talk a lot on the podcast about like mindset and like the way that you speak to yourself matters and all of those things. And I think at the root of this question, like you gained weight during the holidays after a prep, which number one, after a prep, you're going to gain weight. You can't stay at your stage weight, right? So like that's already kind of part of the process. Number two, if you were enjoying the holidays, like that needs to be your perspective. So instead of blaming the holidays or blaming yourself for the weight gain, instead, I think reframing it that like you were able to enjoy meals with your family, meals out with your friends, drinks with coworkers, whatever it is, like those are normal life activities that you were able to take part in. And instead of guilting yourself over something you already did, it's going to be much easier to just accept that and move on and not beat yourself up continuously about it. Because the reality is you can't go back in time and change that. Like you enjoyed those things. You did what you did. You acted the way you acted. So just move forward. And then the second part of the question, like feeling bad about it and how to deal with that. This might sound harsh, but you just do. You just deal with it because like I just said, you took those actions. You can't take them back. Instead of framing it negatively, why don't you challenge yourself to think about all the good things that came from it? Because maybe those meals out with your coworkers or those desserts with your grandma or whatever, maybe like those interactions helped form a deeper relationship or helped form a special connection or or better memories with those people, right? I think that there's always something positive that you can glean out of a situation. So if you can, instead of worrying so much about what other people are thinking of you or like how you perceive your body, just like getting out of that mindset. So that question, that question actually was very helpful for me as well to kind of like out loud process with you guys. Because at the end of the day, like, even if you did gain a little bit too much weight post show through the holidays, that doesn't mean that you can't change that. Like, you're not stuck in that circumstance. And I think with New Year's, right? Like, everybody goes into New Year's feeling super motivated. Like, a lot of people like to use it as a fresh start or a way to like restart. And I do think that that's good. And I don't want to discourage anybody from that, because I think it's useful to have like, okay, cool, we're turning the page. Like, it's a new start, new year. But like, you can use that to then change where you're at. So if you're not happy with the way you look, if you're not happy with the way you feel, if you're not happy with the weight that you gained, okay, cool, make a plan and start to lose the weight again. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, like, for health reasons, if you haven't already, like, I would get blood work done, see what's happening in there, because maybe even like optimizing some of your hormones or your thyroid function or taking care of some of those things, those could also help with like dropping some of the like maybe inflammation or water weight. The other thing that I did want to talk about today before I forget, because it's like fresh in my mind, is like New Year's. And I know that a lot of people on social media are going to tell you like, set your goals and use this time to start rebranding yourself, or whatever it is that people say around New Year's. And while I do think that that can be good, I also think that there's a component missing that a lot of people don't talk about. And that's like the deeper underlying meaning behind the goals that you're setting. So a lot of the time, like, we'll go into New Year's and we'll be like, okay, like, I want to lose 50 pounds. I want to earn $10,000 more per month. And I want to, I don't know, get a 6-pack to make my ex jealous. Like, just like goals that are very much results and external based, instead of goals that are maybe more inherent. And I've talked about this previously. Like, I think we did an episode a while ago on identity shifting. Honestly, I think that was back when Danielle and I were running the podcast. So it was like when I was on TM and I was kind of going down like a different path of life. When we talk about like New Year's, new goals, new year, new you, whatever it is, a lot of the time people are super focused on like the external and the outside and the surface level. And they're not necessarily worried about the underlying, like the identity piece of it. So what's that statistic? Everybody says it's like 90% of New Year's resolutions don't end up like being carried out. Like, most people fail at the resolutions, or most people don't make it to February without failing, whatever that is. I think the reason for that is because most people are so concerned on the results and the outcome that they burn themselves out, that they aren't able to follow through because they didn't actually look at what needs to happen internally for them to achieve those goals. And so instead of looking at like the person that they want to become and acting like that person and instilling like habits, beliefs, actions, accountability for that identity of that new person that they're striving to become, most people will just be like, well, I want to achieve this, and the only way to measure that metric is some external force. And so I think if you genuinely want to make 2025 your year, and you genuinely want that new year, new you to happen, then you need to identify who is it that you want to become. And then once you've identified that, you also have to ask yourself, okay, what does that person believe? What does that person do on a daily basis? How do they show up for themselves, for others? And from there, you can start to compile a roadmap or like a list of traits, characteristics, actions, beliefs, things that that person you're trying to become, things that they do and say and how they act. And that way you can actually build it from the ground up. You can start with a solid foundation of those habits, of that lifestyle, and become that person. And you're way less likely to like burn out on it, because it's not, oh, I'm going to get a 6-pack so that I can make somebody jealous. It's, I'm somebody who lives a fit and healthy lifestyle because I want longevity, because I want to be able to run around with my grandkids. And like, it starts out as like wanting this external goal, right? But like the underlying meaning and what's actually meaningful to you is going to carry you through when things get hard. Because having a six pack or having 6 donuts, you're going to choose the donuts. Like if your only reason is that you want to look a certain way, but if your reasoning is like much deeper than that, then it's a lot easier to say no to those things. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Like I said, this is a very much like stream of consciousness podcast. The other questions that I got were more so around like prepping and bodybuilding. Somebody asked like tips for your first prep. And I know that I've done podcast episodes on that before. But genuinely, like if you're going into this year and you're looking at prepping, you need to ask yourself like 5 questions, and all of them have to do with stability. So mentally, are you in a stable place? How's your relationship with your body? How's your relationship with food? Financially, are you in a stable place? Because contest prep is expensive, especially if you're a woman. Like the expenses are never ending. So if you are in any way, shape, or form unsure of your financial status, like I probably wouldn't prep. Are you able to hire a coach and trust them and work with them for the prep? Because majority of people can't do it themselves. And I wouldn't recommend doing it yourself. And then also like stability within your relationships. So what are your relationships like? Not just romantic, but like your friendships, your family. Are there people in your life who will support you? Or is this going to be something where you have to sit them down and like have a conversation with them about what bodybuilding is, what it entails, what the prep is going to entail, and all of those things? It requires a conversation, because the people you love and care about, if they don't understand and they're not able to support you in a way that is helpful, it just makes prep that much harder. And then also like stability in your life. So as a whole, like, are you planning on moving at all? Are there any big life events like weddings, birthdays, vacations, anything coming up during the prep that's going to pose a challenge? Because prep is built on like consistency and routine. So if you are thinking about doing a prep, my biggest tip is ask yourself those 5 questions and be honest. Because it's okay if there are some things coming up. Like it's okay if you have a wedding to attend during prep. That's fine. Just knowing ahead of time, having the awareness and understanding that it's not going to be a regular event for you. Like you're not going to be able to go drink and eat and do all of the things that like people normally do at a wedding. And if you're okay with that, great. If that's going to pose too much of a challenge for you, then like maybe rethink the prep timeline, right? So that would be like probably my number 1 tip is ask yourself those questions, be honest, talk about it with somebody, and that will set you up for a much smoother experience. The last question I didn't quite understand, but I think that you were asking like why it's important to work out consistently versus just going here and there, which at first I was like, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, that's kind of a dumb question, but it actually, I guess it's not. Like if you have some sort of schedule, or like if you're a shift worker, or like if for some reason you can't go to the gym consistently, or it changes like week to week just based off of your life and your schedule, like biggest thing is just making sure that you do get some sort of physical activity in. Like as humans, we were not meant to sit down for 8 hours a day, and yet that's what like most of our society does. We are made to move around, to use our bodies, and like genuinely, if you don't use it, you lose it. So what I would do is if you're not able to go to the gym, that's fine. Schedule in time in your day, whether it's like first thing in the morning or at lunch or after work, to like go outside, take a walk. If you can't go outside because the weather's terrible, that's fine too. You can intentionally like get steps in around your house, or if you live in an apartment, do laps around your building, go to like a local gym, walk on the treadmill. Like exercise doesn't have to be this like big, fancy, crazy schedule, routine, program thing. Like exercise can genuinely be going outside and taking a walk. So I think if you're struggling with like finding the time or the motivation to be consistent, reframing the way that you think about exercise and movement and working out can be really helpful, because genuinely, like I believe working out brings you closer to yourself. And if you don't like to work out, if you don't like to exercise, like I would ask why that is. Is it because you don't like being uncomfortable? You don't like being in pain? You're worried what other people will think of you? Like keep asking yourself why. And if you can get to the root of it, I guarantee it's usually going to be like fear of change, fear of failure, like fear of other people judging you, when really like exercise is for you. And again, like going back to the earlier point, working out doesn't have to be for aesthetic reasons. Like it can be for simply just wanting to get healthier. And it also doesn't have to be complicated. Like you can start with walking. You can start with focusing on small, tangible little habits and steps like drinking water. And it'll compound up over time. But the only thing that won't work is like not doing anything at all. So if you tell yourself that like, well, I can't be consistent, so like I can't be healthy, or I can't be consistent, so what's the point of trying to be fit? Like that's just an excuse. You're just lying to yourself. You don't have to be like perfect and consistent on a routine. You can literally find something in every day to improve on. Okay. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate y'all for coming along this stream of consciousness ride with me. But I hope that everybody has had a safe, happy New Year's, and I will catch you all on the next episode. So stay relentless.